All right, guys, welcome back to quarantine edition, probably 4 or 5 for you guys. We're recording this on March 26th. I think everyone's pretty much shuttered in place at this time. I'm talking to George here, who happens to be in his childhood bedroom, which is now a storage closet for his parents.
Is that really how we're kicking off this episode?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at your bedroom. It's very nice. A lot of storage items in it. I don't quite see a bed yet, but I assume you're sleeping there, right?
Not. No, I'm not sleeping in this bedroom. No, this is yeah. This was my childhood room that is converted to storage. Yes,
Times have changed, huh?
yes. George has moved out long time ago.
Yes, and all the trail of ladies are not coming through there anymore.
Nope. Oh my gosh, man. All right, we are moving right past that topic.
Okay, we can move past that. All right, we got an interview here. His fake name is Frank. We'll get right into it. I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you in the outro. All right, we're back with another anonymous guest. We have Frank with us today. How are you, Frank?
Doing well.
Before we get into the bulk of the interview, we're taping this on March 25th. This is now the second week for most dentists in the country of their either mandated or strongly recommended partial closures. So I'm curious how you are handling your office and specifically how you're handling staff.
This is one of the advantages, I believe, about having a smaller office and a smaller team. Basically, I just have me and my wife. My wife works the front, and then I have one dental assistant and one hygienist. And so my hygienist lives at home, and she has some other income coming in. So she's offered to basically stay at home and apply for unemployment. My dental assistant is going to be working on a part-time basis as needed. She's going to be coming in for about a half a day each day, answering the phones, and then also assisting me for any emergencies that we get.
Now, how did you handle those conversations with your assistant and your hygienist as far as, letting them know what the plan was?
So, we had a team meeting when the news came out and explained to them that, this is all a fluid situation and things are going to change day to day. And I'm going to be looking for what kind of relief we're going to get from Congress once whatever bill gets passed from the Senate. But basically, I met with them one-on-one and sort of asked them, I want to help you out and I definitely want to be here for you. But, also have to make sure you have a job to come back to once this is all over. So, I kind of asked them, like, what do you need or what do you think would be fair? And just kind of came up with an individual, on each individual basis. My dental assistant is a little bit lower paid salary. So I was more comfortable keeping her on, and I needed somebody to help me when, we have emergencies. My hygienist is typically higher paid. And so, when she offered to stay home and that basically took a lot of pressure off of my plate to be able to pay her salary this whole time while she's not working.
Yeah, I loved how you framed that. Like, the number one priority is that you guys have a job to come back to when this all ends. Like that is the ultimate thing. And then from there, what does everyone need to live and survive and to not, seep into poverty? I loved how you set that all up. And like you said, one of the benefits of a smaller office, especially for you having your wife be at the front, you only have 2 employees who you're not related to. And it just makes things a lot easier to handle than some others with big group practices and lots of staff, associates, and all that. Well, hopefully this ends soon. You're taping this from one of your operatories. This is giving me all the feels. I'm like eager to get back in there. Like, I haven't seen that in days now. So great. Well, tell us more about yourself, kind of your background, and then how you ended up finding this practice you're in now.
So I graduated dental school and I started to work as an associate was sort of a family friend, and he had a established private practice, fee for service type practice where I was getting paid a percentage of collections. And I just found that I wasn't seeing enough patients, wasn't busy enough. A lot of the patients preferred to see the owner doctor there. And so I wasn't getting enough reps day by day to pay, have a good income. And then also felt like it wasn't really just doing enough treatment. And so we both mutually decided that you go look somewhere else. So I ended up getting a job with a DSO. Actually, the office I went and worked for about a month after I started working for him, it was a local chain of group practices, and then it got bought out by one of the large DSO groups. I guess I could say who it is. Huh?
I don't see
It
why
was
not.
Heartland Dental. So I worked for Heartland Dental for about 2 years or so in this practice, where I was the only dentist in this location. It was one of the smaller practices. I think that it was probably acquired just because it was a part of this larger group that they wanted to acquire. And so after about 2 years of doing that, the practice was in a little bit of a bad area, bad demographics, I believe, and it really wasn't doing that well. And so I left that practice, and then I decided to become an owner and start looking for practices to purchase. And so after a little, maybe 3-4 months after looking, I found this practice on the market. Um, Actually found it looking through a Dental Town classified ad section, and it was interesting because it was in the area where we lived at the time and where we wanted to live. And so I decided, let's call this owner up and go take a look at it. And we came and looked at it, and compared to a lot of the other practices we had seen, this one was a little bit more well kept up. And so I could see myself practicing in a smaller office. It was kind of similar to the one I was already practicing in before. So gave me confidence to go ahead and make the move. And we got the financials and worked out a purchase price, and got a lawyer to represent my side. He got a lawyer, and we did the sale. And then I came in, and he basically handed the keys off and said, just call me if you need me. And so just been here for about 2 years now, and probably grown the practice. Was doing about 360 before, and last year we did right around 500. So I think we grew it like about 40% so far since I bought it. So it's been doing pretty well, and just work Monday through Thursday. We do one Saturday a month, half day. So yeah, that's pretty much it so far. Just small team. We're just trying to grow it, taking a little bit at a time.
Nice. I want to circle back because you have an interesting perspective, because you had the two ends of the spectrum of the associate jobs. You had the fee for service, smaller, slower pace office, and then, the busier DSO environment. What did you feel like was a more prepared you for ownership in out of those two?
Well, I think that it's good to have both experiences, because I learned a lot, I guess, with patient relationships, observing the doctor in the fee for service environment. That was sort of the type of practice that I want to practice in more so. So I think that was good for the softer skills and things like that. The uh, the clinical reps, I definitely feel like I grew more in the DSO type of environment. I know with Heartland Dental specifically, they offer a lot of CE. I learned how to do, molar endo, which I had never done before, and several other things. I did a lot more extractions, things that I probably wouldn't have touched if I would have stayed like in the private office environment. I would have probably referred everything out, but.
Yeah, I mean, I love that way of becoming an owner. That's kind of like how I did it. I had the kind of my DSO was residency, was doing the extractions, the root canals, and that high paced, kind of Medicaid population. And then I went to work for a fee for service office in my associate job, and that where I grew like the patient, like you said, the patient, communication skills and selling treatment in the private practice world with people with some money now. So I always recommend that kind of mix, however you do it for people. I probably lean more if you're going to do just one of them, the higher clinical reps. I don't know what you feel, kind of, if people just do one track. I think that's ultimately what's going to help you out in the long run.
Yes, I would say, if you're doing the clinical reps, maybe you could go shadow somebody for a day or two and pick up some of the the other stuff. But I feel like that just to get the reps that you need and to be able to have some, especially if you work in a larger setting, some people that can maybe bail you out if you get into an extraction that's over your head or something like that. It allows you to to try a little bit more.
Yeah, it gives you that safety net. And then, like you said, you can get some of those other skills in other places. That's where you can shadow, where you can podcast and books, and you can kind of get that outside the chair sometimes. So back to your practice. You said you're at about 500 or so last year. What are your goals for this year, and where do you see kind of 5, 10 years down the road?
So this year we set our goals to grow 20% over last year. So we have a lot of write-offs right now. So, I would like to have my gross production be $1 million. And then out of that, collections wise, we're wanting to collect 600. And then, out of that, I would like to take home, 200, I believe, or 250. I can't remember exactly, but I want to lower the overhead, but be able to take home a little bit more, but not have to work too much harder to take that home. Like I wanted to do more things like negotiate the rates with the insurance write-offs, start doing more higher dollar procedures like dental implants, orthodontics, things like that would be able to be more productive and not have to work any more hours.
Nice. And how about like forecasting out your ultimate vision for the practice? Where do you see it going?
So originally, when I was buying the practice, I thought that if I could have like one associate and have me and an associate and maybe two or three hygienists and maybe do have like say a $2 million practice or somewhere in that range with a lower overhead. That's sort of what I was thinking as far as the goal. I would probably have to either expand this office or move locations because there's not really a lot of room to expand in our current spot here.
Right. You mentioned it's just 3 ops, but that you could expand only to 4, and that would be it.
Right. There's a
Okay.
unit next door that I could buy, but then I would have to renovate it because it's not set up for a dental office. So I'd have to. It would be a major project, but it is possible to add on more ops in the future.
So where do you like where are you really committed to it going? Is that
I
what
would
you
I
want
would
for
like
it,
to
or
I would like to have 6 ops if it was ideally, and I could work out of two. I could have two hygienists, 2 to 3 hygienists, and maybe have the associate. But that's kind of what I was thinking.
have you shared this vision with your staff or wife?
As far as having an associate,
As far as like
yeah,
where you want to be able to go?
we've talked about it before. Yeah, mostly
Yeah.
with my wife. My team, we did share about possibly trying to grow the practice and get more rooms and get more staff, and they seem on board with that.
Nice. And if you got that vision, what would that kind of make possible for you that isn't possible now?
Well, I just would like to not have to stress about day to day with money and paying bills and things like that. I would be able to take a little nicer vacations and not saying I'm living like a pauper now, but it would just be nice that to basically not have to stress out as much. Just basically, you know. So I like to keep it small enough that it's manageable, but not too small that you're worried about basically you know covering your bills and everything every month.
Sure. So I'm hearing like a breakthrough in freedom, adventure, some financial security.
Yeah.
Nice. And where do you feel like where is the bottleneck now in the practice that's preventing you from currently being somewhere close to there?
Well, I think right now we had a good month in January, but it was kind of like everybody was it was a little stressful. Like everybody was kind of feeling like they were run down a little bit, overworked, kind of. So I feel like maybe adding some more team members would help to take the stress off of everyone, but it'll still allow us to be like more productive. And I guess that was one of the things I wanted to kind of discuss and see, like, when you know you're at that point where like you can afford to hire another dental assistant or another hygienist. And then, basically just what we'd have to do is save up the money, I guess, or take a loan out or whatever to build another room if we're going to add a second hygienist. Because right now it's kind of tough if I have two hygienists working, then I'm basically stuck to one room. And if I'm working out of two rooms, then the hygienist is down to one room. So
yeah, you're definitely dealing with some space constraints in your current operation. So go back to January. Like you said, it was kind of a stressful month for everyone. Where kind of go through with the team members how they handle, like, why was it stressful for you guys? Like what was the issue that was, made it so hard to handle for everyone?
Well, I think when we get people that want to come in, and it's like you want to get them in soon, or you want to get them in like today if possible, if they need treatment. And then it's like if you already have a kind of a full schedule and you throw in another patient like on top of that. And I tell the patients, I tell my employees, I'm like, okay, like it's gonna be fine. It always works out. Like, but they just see the schedule and they freak out and they're like, oh, this is, there's no way we're going to be able to do that or something. And, we might might run late, like 15, 20 minutes on the next patient. But in my mind, it's like, okay, well, you're helping out somebody that's in pain or something. I guess I deal with that better than sometimes my employees. Like, they're like, no, we have to run on time every time. And I agree, like, for the most part, it's good business to run on time. But I guess I'm just like pushing them sometimes, that maybe I push them too hard or don't maybe show them as much appreciation as I probably should sometimes. So maybe they just feel like maybe overworked and not as appreciated possibly.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think almost all dentists fall into. We're much more quick to give feedback more negatively or criticism, or like, this is what you should be doing instead of what you're doing, versus like those moments when we notice they went above and beyond and nailed something, and we can show that and really build trust with them.
Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most.
You cannot look at them just by themselves. You have to look at a few other things together with it. But the most important number any practice right off the bat should look at is patient acceptance. And the difference between treatment acceptance and patient acceptance is treatment acceptance is the amount of dollars that we're accepting. For example, if you presented $100,000 worth of treatment, how much of that has been accepted, meaning scheduled or completed? Okay, so in this particular example, if 100,000 was presented, 55,000 was accepted, or either scheduled or completed. But the second part is 72%, which is the patient acceptance. What this means is that if you presented $100,000 worth of treatment to 100 patients, meaning $1,000 per patient, 72 of those patients scheduled some aspect of that treatment. Looking at patient acceptance is the absolute best way to go.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial.
Do you feel like your bottleneck is more on your side of the schedule or in hygiene?
I would say probably in hygiene, because hygiene books out like sometimes 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks sometimes. And on my side, like I can get somebody in within a day or two. So to me, I feel like that, but I mean, I do sometimes I'll have openings on my side as well. So Maybe if I was seeing more hygiene patients, I'm thinking in my head that I would have more exams that I could pull treatment from and move them over to my side. So I guess they sort of, feed on each other in a way.
Yeah. I think you need a staff member in both areas, from what I
Mm-hmm.
can tell. You mentioned it a little earlier. You take some heavy insurance write-offs. Like
Mm-hmm.
we'll get into numbers in the next part. Your production in January was 92,000. After adjustments was 56,000. So that's a pretty heavy write-off.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need that more patient flow. Like you need more hygiene patients. Again, we'll get into this in the second part, but your hygiene department is super low producing.
Mm-hmm.
Partially, I assume, due to the write-offs.
Mm-hmm.
And with a hygiene that's booked out at least 3 weeks, sometimes more, I would definitely look to get a second hygiene in there
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you can.
Okay.
Because we always talk about on the podcast, like what you need to afford another hygienist is, in your case, maybe 3 patients a day,
Mm-hmm.
and you've covered their salary, not to mention what you're producing from those exams you wouldn't already have done. And if you take into those exams, you take in your production, you probably more need like 1 or 2 patients to cover
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So did you have like what in your mind, where did you see the staff changes kind of rolling out? Like how did you envision which one to go for first, or when to do it? Or
Well, I was thinking about getting a part-time dental assistant first, and then that way I could run like 2 columns some days, and then as far as the hygienist goes, maybe starting her off like 1 day a week, and then as we're able to fill that day, then open up a second day, and then until eventually we'll have 2 full-time here. I did have 1 day, I think last year around December, where I did have like we had a lot of people want to come in before the end of the year. We didn't have any openings on hygiene, so I got a temporary hygienist to come in and work like a couple of days, and that definitely helped clear up some more hygiene times. And that, even like right now, like sometimes if there's no room on the hygienist schedule, they'll put a cleaning, or we'll put a new patient on my side, and I'll just do the cleaning on them sometimes.
you like doing those?
Not particularly, but
I didn't think so. I'm not going to give away your state, but I coach a client in your state, and I know kind of what a new employee costs, and it's extremely reasonable. The salaries in your state are some of the lowest in the country. So, with your insurance write-offs, you need to be 2 columns. Like you can't run a profitable, getting towards your vision of a $1 million plus office running on a 1 column, running on a 1 hygiene is just the numbers will not ever add up. So I would if you giving my own advice, assistant right away, and then like you said, rolling out the hygiene however you see fit. If you wanted to do 1 day a week, you could probably do more to start. The issue with kind of doing that is finding the person that's able to incrementally add days, like the potential hygienist, which might be tricky but could work out. And how about at the front? Do you envision that once you get the hygienist and the assistant, that your wife will need some help up front, or do you think she can handle kind of the flow of things?
Well, right now she's been actually like helping out some in the back and the front. So she'll come back, and if she has a break, like help sterilize instruments and things like that. But if we have that other assistant, we won't need as much help in the back. So she'll have more time up front. So, I'm sure there's some things that are probably slipping through the cracks as far as like this week we've been catching up on like AR and everything. So if she had another person up front to help out, I'm sure we would probably be able to stay on top of that, more often than we are now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say once this virus is over and things are starting to be back up running, you get that assistant as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I think that's right away. And maybe even congruently with the hygienist, like getting those ads out and
I
getting
know
that started.
we were really talking about it like right before all this happened. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't do it a couple
Yeah, I
weeks
get
ago.
it all worked out in timing wise, I
But,
suppose.
but yes, and then the other thing we talked about, we had a team meeting today, and we talked about when we do come back, there's going to be some pent up. I believe there's going to be some pent up like demand there of patients wanting to come in right away, especially with like cleanings, people that haven't had a cleaning, haven't been able to have a cleaning. So that might be a good time to add that hygienist.
Definitely. Yeah, it's tough because, like, I mean, none of us have lived through something like this where, like, we've been shut down, so we don't know. Like, there'll be a lot of demand. What are the effects of recession going to be on people's willingness to, spend money in dental office? But I mean, that is one of the benefits of being more insurance driven is, people aren't so much going out of pocket for expensive, a lot of treatment. Most of kind of what they get is covered, and their copays are probably pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's reasonable for you to expect that uptick in demand right away.
Yeah, rebound.
What are you doing currently for marketing?
So right now we have a website company that I'm paying for. They call it SEO, but it's basically they're adding one page to the website every month. I pay for that. I pay for Google AdWords. I do it myself. I do Facebook ads myself. I do Groupon. I know there's been kind of a lot of division on that one, but we do have Groupon, and it's a mixed bag. I'm not sure, it brings people in, but they don't necessarily stay. So I don't know if it's, how great it is, but every once in a while we'll get somebody paid, cash for scaling root planing, or, we'll get something, good case from it. But you have to go through a lot of, lookers before that,
Yeah,
so.
the numbers bear that out a little bit, and we'll get to that. Because
But that's
I
about
mean,
it.
where I see your office is immediately understaffed is the one which we've already covered, and the second part is you need more patients. Like, you need to increase your patient flow, and you're doing a decent job with keeping people up to date on recall. So
Mhm.
you think of patient flow as obviously two different sects. It's your existing patient population, which you get in through pre-appointing and reactivating, and your new patient flow. Um, you're getting pretty good new patient numbers. Like, we're going to look at January's numbers in part
Mhm.
two, and you saw 50 new patients that month.
Mhm.
But 24 of them came from the Groupon. So
Mhm.
you're already taking a huge cut on your hygiene, which could be also contributing to your low hygiene production.
Yeah.
And I'll just jump right into it now since we're talking about it. Out of your 50 patients, 23 left without an appointment. And I went back months, and kind of a similar, half of your new patients don't pre-appoint for something. So it's almost
Mhm.
like you didn't even get them.
Mhm.
So where do you see an opportunity to tighten that either policy or how you guys are handling new patients coming in?
Mhm. Well, we tried to limit the Groupons, lower them. We talked about maybe raising the price on it, to try and make it a little bit more, uh, you know, maybe the people that are just wanting the lower cost deal or whatever, maybe steer them away a little bit. Um, but maybe I don't know, maybe just trying some to replace those patients that we're getting from Groupon with more direct referrals. I mean, I definitely feel like the referrals that we get are our best patients, which, I mean, that's what everybody says anyway. But I mean, they spend the most money, they're the most basically trusting when they come in. It's easy to sell them treatment, whereas, somebody that comes in on a coupon is basically going to be very wary of anything you tell them to do, or that they need done.
Yeah. My personal thoughts on Groupon, and it doesn't make me right, is that it's a false sense of security. I
Mm-hmm.
did it for a while. Like, you see the numbers, you got 23 new patients from Groupon. You think, wow, that's great. Like, what a great source. But then
Mm-hmm.
the quality of those people, as you pointed to, is they don't stay in the practice. They're price shoppers. They come for the cleaning and then you don't see them again, or they come for the toothache and you don't see them again. the key with new patients is quality over quantity. So like you said, referrals is obviously where you get the best quality, or people were choosing your office not because it's a $79 cleaning, because of your good Google reviews, your nice website, your a Google ad that reached them. Like that's where you get a patient who's going to be willing to spend money, willing to stay in the office for years, and hopefully be a referral source for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously your call what to do with the Groupon. I don't think it's sustainable long term for you. I think as you kind of make new strategies and think of some other opportunities, I think would serve you better to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you guys ever done anything for like a referral program or bonus or anything?
For a while, we were doing something just to. So what we do, we give them, like, if they do refer somebody, we give them a card with a gift card in it, normally for like some coffee. In our state, you can't directly pay for referrals, but I think you can give them a thanks after the fact kind of thing. So we don't necessarily advertise that with our patients, but we do. If they do refer somebody, we send them like a thank you card with the gift card, and they seem to appreciate that. So
Yeah, I mean it's a nice gesture. But then like the only problem there is you lose that incentive. They
yeah,
don't know about it. It's like after the
right,
fact. Like, oh,
yeah,
that's and what that could encourage future referrals. It's not
hmm
doing nothing.
yeah,
But something a little bit more direct, and you could maybe reference your state guidelines for this, where they know about it ahead of time and they got that incentive, and now they're
like
more apt to do it.
maybe like a raffle or something like that.
Yeah,
Or
I mean, I love the raffle idea. George is the thought leader on that one. I stole it from him. Um, and like I said in previous ones, like making it a a bigger prize, something that's like, wow, you hear my dentist is offering, like, this is crazy, you know.
yeah,
So I would suggest seeing exactly how the law is written, or guidelines or whatever, and seeing if there's any way you can you know do something like that. The incentive they'll know about.
to promote it. Yeah.
What else did you want to cover, kind of about your office or vision or anything, before we kind of dive into the numbers?
Um, no, I mean, those were the main things that I wanted to. So like, obviously, like, the staffing is a big thing. And then, like you said, as far as like bottlenecks, it's just, like you said, number of patients. So I think when I bought the practice, I had about like 600 to 700 active patients. And I think when I ran the numbers the other day, it was like 1,000. So, it has grown, but like you said, I don't know how many of those 1,000 actually have like a next appointment. That would be a good number to know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and we'll get into all those. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
also showing 1,000 patients. Like, so, you've definitely grown it. I mean, I think for you, a benchmark, assuming you stay in your 3 to 4 op office, 1,500 maybe is kind of like where you're
Yeah,
shooting for.
that's kind of where I was thinking.
Yeah, and
You,
that's
are
that's
you a
enough to
you're a
have
four op, huh?
2 full-time hygienists busy on a 4-day schedule, and have plenty of patients for you. Let's talk quickly before we break for part two about your plans for the fourth op. Like, when did you see yourself being like ready? Like, all right, this is the time I'm gonna outfit this.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I would like to have it now. I looked into the pricing with for instance, like a Henry Schein or something like that, and I'm sure they offer financing on it. But I guess I'm kind of like debt averse, so I'm trying to kind of save up for it, I guess. But I did just buy like a mobile X-ray unit, so I can use that for the X-rays. I really would just need to get a chair and a rolling mobile unit. Um, and that's pretty much it. And then I'd have to get like the counters ripped out or whatever. But I mean, I don't know how much that stuff costs, but uh,
Did you get any quotes from them?
for the chair or for
Mhm.
I got quotes for the chair. I think it was about like, well, with I think without the X-ray thing, it was about maybe like 11,000 or something.
Mm-hmm. So then, what do you
Yeah.
estimate? What do you estimate total cost of it would be?
I'm just gonna guess maybe around 20,000.
Okay. What do you think having that fourth op would help you raise production to a month? Say you have the second hygienist
Yeah.
part time. How much could you
Well,
raise it a month?
if we're doing, I think our goal is 75 right now in 3 ops, so we could probably raise it. That's before adjustments and everything, but we could probably raise up maybe another 10, 15,000 a month.
And what would you estimate the payment on that 20,000 is a month? So what 2,000 a month if you did a year or
Yeah,
whatever?
yeah, probably.
See how that math adds up?
Yeah,
Yeah. I think when you bring on that second hygienist, you're going to need this up and running.
yeah.
I don't think you can do without it.
Okay.
Just thinking about how you could operate on one room, that probably wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, people do crazy things out there, but I don't think you'd want to hamstring yourself to one room.
Yeah.
So that's like the general strokes of the opportunities I see for you. Staff, getting in more quality new patients, and raising capacity. I think those are your big rocks for this year, is like figuring all those three out. And then everything else is just details. And it sounds like you got a supportive staff. It's nice that you have your wife in there. I always love when, dentists able to have their wife, someone they really trust, especially at the front. It's such a good setup. So
yeah, she's really good with the patients. So
do you want him to make, well, it's tough. I was going to ask you to put like deadlines on some of this stuff, but with the virus, it's so tough to kind of estimate.
For sure. Yeah.
I would just start to think of a way, for you that you're able to implement these different items, like writing down goals and making, plans that way. Like just find some system that works for you as far as, implementing these. Otherwise, it's just going to be ideas in your head that you may get to, you may not. So we'll break here, and then we'll see everyone next week for part 2 of our interview with Frank. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of our interview with Frank. George is sitting here at the edge of his seat. He's locked and loaded. He's got his talking points ready. He's ready to do maybe a little roasting gently. What do you got, George?
You used the word gently. I did not use the word gently.
That's fine. Hey,
this is right. But let's talk about. Let me end on a rant. And I think there were some things I wanted to acknowledge and talk about first. I think one thing that is very apparent, and it'll come up more in part 2 for me at least, but you can tell that this doc benefited from their clinical experience pre-ownership. And so I think for all of our pre-owner listeners out there, that clinical, you guys talked, like you talked about your residency, he talked about his DSO associateship, but that experience that lets you get reps with specialty procedures, especially endo and extractions, I would call those two as the two big ones, so valuable. And in part 2, you'll see I'll just foreshadow a low hygiene percentage. And that has a lot to do with his ability to do specialty procedures and wring that towel. So I actually felt like that was one area where I was impressed with him. And now that is one thing that I look at my situation as something I never got to get. I went right into the practice I bought, and I missed out on that. And so a lot of the lazy dentist clinical aversion, may have not been there had I had that type of associateship. And so that affects me every day.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel super strong about that, about, if your dental school wasn't that kind of clinical reps, I think, most aren't, getting that is super important, because as you found, George, learning, being an owner, and then also kind of still learning dentistry, like the daily stuff, is super stressful.
Yeah. No, not my favorite.
Yeah.
So how did I handle that? I just grew out of it so that I don't have to do that stuff. But that's not ideal for most people.
Right. And it's not like usually a reality of the practice they're in.
Yeah, exactly.
More often than not, a solo doctor office.
So now there was 2 things that I think, maybe I don't want to call them grind my gears, but just things that were mentioned that I want to address. So there was this context, or this idea that work harder and making more are 2 things that you can't have one without the other. You can't make more without working harder. And this is something, and I'm only bringing it up too because I run into dentists a lot where I challenge them a little bit sometimes. And this is more like talking to a dentist in public about their practice. out and about, we're just chatting, and they always come back to, well, I don't want to make any more because I'll have to work harder, and I'm happy with how much I work. And I really would like to, and that came up a little bit here, and he just mentioned it for a second, but it really brought up this greater point of there's a difference between working harder and making more are two completely different things. I actually work less hard and make more. That's not that is a very realistic possibility for many people, and the two are not correlated, or not as closely correlated as one would think. So, Matt, do you have any? I know you have feelings on that topic as well.
Definitely. I think a lot of people think about their own day at the office and they feel really busy. Like they're doing a lot. They're seeing hygiene patients. They're doing a lot in their own chair. And they don't feel like they have time to do anything else. Like this is all I can do. I'm running around, but they haven't like stepped back and thought about like, how can I set up my office where I'm not like I have time for more things through delegating, through making systems more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're stuck in their own current reality and they just don't see a way out. So that when that whole topic comes up, do you want to make more? They think to themselves, I can't do anymore. That's where they're stuck.
And it's that idea, like you said, right? Either increased efficiency or increased delegation within your legal limits, and being able to do those two things. If you could look at your situation objectively, you could see how much more time you could free up, and if done efficiently, can do more without feeling like you're doing more. Because
what I think you made a point on another episode really did a light bulb for me, was that how you said when you delegate something to an assistant, say for a crown seat, it's not really what's best for the patient. It's more like what's best for the staff, for you, for the office. Like, there may be a time where they over reduce and then you have to send it back. It's not like it's not patient based. It's for you in the office. So I think that's like a mindset shift a lot of people could have.
Interesting. I don't want that to, like that can come off another way. Right. That can come off that we are harming a patient for the purpose of teaching a staff member something. I never do that.
Right.
But the example we used was a crown, where that my assistant needs to learn how to properly seat a crown, not seat it, but do all the adjustments so that I can come seat it. And being okay with the inconveniencing of the patient for the purpose of teaching an assistant how to learn that process, for me, is a trade-off I take. Yes.
Because I think for a lot of dentists, they're very, they take a lot of pride in their clinical work, right? Which is a good thing. Like they want to make sure the patient gets a really nice temp and their crown seat goes, everything goes well and it fits perfect. So they are very hesitant to take themselves out of that equation. When another way they could look at it is, training that staff member to be just as good at, or good enough as they would be, and then thus freeing up time for them to do other things.
And then, like a common one I hear is packing cord, where the dentist's like, oh, I'll just pack the cord myself. The assistant takes forever.
I always pack the cord. So
see, and then, right. And you're just doing it because out of ease for that appointment, it's easier if you pack the cord, but you're packing the cord every single appointment because it's easier. And the reality, the compound effect of that is a lot of packing cord. And I don't know how long you take. I'm not saying you take forever. You might have the 10-second cord packing technique down or whatever. But, for me, if I'm on a patient that's easy to work on, and at this point, all my assistants pack cord, I don't think I've ever done it, but in my practice. But if, early on, if you're in a situation where, the assistant needs to learn how to do it, and there's a patient, you have adequate anesthesia, you have adequate time in the schedule, that's a good patient. Patient seems easygoing. That's a good learning patient for that assistant. And then they go and they pack the cord and they learn, and you teach them. And, you let them know, hey, watch me pack this cord, see how I'm doing this. And then you there's training of your team that is important. And it's okay if the experience isn't as awesome for the patient in that one appointment. If your team can learn and grow and then become better moving forward, then for me, that's a trade-off I'm taking.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Right. Can I roast them?
You go for it. Yeah, I'm waiting.
All right.
On it.
So there's this I'll call it perceived group practice bias that I have. And
really, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just somebody likes larger practices. And so, right. And he said some things about wanting a larger practice. He said he wants a larger practice. And two things come to mind. One, anytime somebody tells me they want a larger practice, I always ask them why. And his answer was more time off, more cushion to pay the bills. Those to me are not reasons. Those are not indications for a group practice. Those can be accomplished solo. Now, the biggest skills you need to have as a group practice owner, as a solo, your biggest skill needs to be your ability to perform dentistry. You need to be good at many different procedures. I mean, you don't have to be, but it helps. Group practice, you need to be able to manage risk, expenses, debt, decision making, staff, chaos. You need to be able to manage that. In general, this doc is incredibly risk averse. And for somebody like myself who's very I don't know what you want to call me. What's the opposite of risk averse? I don't know the vocabulary word for it, but I tend to really enjoy taking risks. And that tends to be something that is not going to deter me from doing something. So I'm a good fit for the group practice model, the multi-practice, or the large practice model. This doc is very, very, I mean, the idea of building an additional operatory was like this insurmountable $20,000 expense. And I'm looking at it like, dude, your overhead with a group practice is going to be like $40,000 to $50,000 more per month. I mean, like you got to be able to.
And especially because for a group practice for him, he would have to change locations.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of financial risk involved in group practice, especially for this doctor, and their ability to take on risk to date and what they've shown are two things that do not align. And so this is, for me, I honestly feel like when I talk to a dentist, I can kind of tell if they're solo or group when talking to them. This guy's screaming solo. I think he just needs to take that group idea and just kind of toss it, to be quite frank. This is not a good fit for him. He bought a 3-op practice, which for me is another of my favorite things.
You can't buy a 3-op practice. You just can't.
Yeah. But luckily,
I'll say it. Like,
he can build out a 4th. Like, all he has to do is equip it.
Right. He has the space for 4th.
Yeah.
So.
Like, thank goodness. Right. Like, you can at least buy a 3-op practice that can't be expanded to 4. I did have an interesting idea for him. I'll probably talk about it in part 2 about a way that he can ease into the 4th op, because it seems like he's very resistant to that idea. So I think we're going to talk in part 2 a lot about the new patient flow, the Groupon stuff, and then the tactical strategy moving forward for him. But I'm excited. This is a good one, and I took it easy on him. It's just, for me, if you tell me, and now clients come to me wanting group practices, and like a lot of the solo to group transitions, they call me, and I just tell them straight up, you got to be able to stomach it. It does test your stomach lining. $120,000 a month of overhead, that tests you, and so you have to have the stomach for that. And
yeah, and I think this is I totally agree with everything you said. I think this is a breakdown in him for his vision. Like, he hasn't fully ironed out his why and his, like, he thinks he wants a group practice because X, Y, and Z, but he hasn't really like put it on paper and thought about, this is the real reason why I'm committed to this. And he doesn't have that commitment, which is fine, but he needs to realize that, it's more of a pipe dream in his current scenario and based on his current like risk aversion to ever getting there.
Yeah. And we're not saying it's a pipe dream because he can't do it. Right. Like, we're saying it's a pipe dream based on his current mentality.
Right.
His current mindset and his risk aversion is nowhere near where it has to be for him to get to where he says he wants to go, which I genuinely don't believe. I believe he can get to what he wants without doing that difficult work that he'd have to accomplish to get to a group.
And I think he'll come to that realization. All right. Anything else for this one, George?
No, I just wanted to let Frank know that I'm sorry if I was a little harsh. I get fired up about topics, and don't take it personally.
Frank's a cool guy.
Cool.
I'm sure he's open to the feedback.
Awesome.
And if he isn't, I'll hear about it over email, and then I'll relay it to you.
Yeah, I got an email from one of your guests once. Like, you were pretty harsh with me on the outro. Like, sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. We'll have part 2 with Frank for you next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.